This podcast is part of the Treksphere Network.
To find more Star Trek-related content, visit Treksphere.com.
Do it.
As you know, this is The Measure of an Episode, where it is our continuing mission to explore what makes Star Trek proper Star Trek, and not just quality or crappy TV. I got nothing for what this one is either. I'm Jonathan.
Soap opera. And I'm Paul, and the criteria by which we judge these episodes, number one, is there science fiction woven into the plot? Is there an exploration of science fiction? Number two, is that science fiction novel or unique in some way? And number three, is there an ethical or moral dilemma presented by the episode? And I'm Paul.
And I'm Jonathan, and this week we watched Star Trek Deep Space Nine, Season 4, Episode 13, and it's still up, so I need to back out a little bit so I can see what the blurb says. Return to Grace, where at First Minister Shakaar's request, Kira prepares to travel to a Cardassian outpost to share Bajoran intelligence about the Klingon Empire.
I was super bummed that Shakaar wasn't even actually in this show, or in this episode.
Oh, I know. So, yeah, all of that information is correct, and it's kind of what the episode's about, but this is very much the blurb, or the cold open, and they don't mention Gul Dukat, they don't mention what happens with the Klingons.
I mean, she's preparing to travel, according to this, that she's not even traveling.
That's true.
I mean, she's traveling most of the episode.
Yeah.
So Shakaar's not even in it. I thought he was going to be like where you said in our earlier episode that he was going to show up in the episode and beg Kira to come do something.
Well, yeah,
but he doesn't do that.
Yeah, that's kind of what I figured it would be.
But Grace isn't in the episode either.
Right? Okay, so why is it called Return to Grace?
Because Gul Dukat, he is really mad at his current position in the Cardassian hierarchy, and he takes matters into his own hands by going rogue at the end of the episode.
Right.
And so he's returning, but he's still falling from grace. He's now instead of just falling rung by rung down the ladder, he just jumps off the ladder backwards.
Yeah,
smiling.
Right. Obviously we're getting ahead of ourselves, but I don't care. His return to grace, it's not. Yes, he got his position back, but he doesn't want it, so he's totally going rogue. That's not a return to grace. That's going rogue.
I think if I were to interpret the episode, I would say that his return to grace was not by vindication or acknowledgement by his superiors, but his own interpretation of what he wants to add to the Cardassian people. And so he felt that this was the only way that he could return to grace because he wasn't going to achieve it politically or militarily, that this was his only way that he could do that.
So it's kind
of what he did.
Like how Gul Dukat got his groove back more.
Exactly.
Okay.
And he didn't even have to turn into a llama.
That's the Emperor's New Groove. No. How Gul Dukat got his groove back, he didn't have to talk to his dead ex-husband.
What?
How Stella got her groove back. That's
Oh, Stella. Oh.
Yeah. You're like, when did Cusco talk to his dead ex-wife?
She died?
There was an ex-wife? Man,
I felt like let's talk about Gul Dukat for a second. We need to go through the plot. The plot's boring.
Okay.
So what I love about this episode is Gul Dukat, because and I don't know if this is on purpose. We're not watching them in enough order for me to really glean what's going on with him and his role in this show. But I love that every time he has a conversation with somebody, I feel like he is manipulating them for some reason.
Oh, yeah.
And even if nothing ever happens from that conversation specifically, I'm always thinking in my head, what is his angle?
Right.
Where is he going with this? I mean, I felt like this whole thing that he he arranged with Kira.
Right.
That even the thing with the Klingons and the thing with we're going to put a weapon inside of the cargo bay to trick them. He made it seem like that was her idea. And I felt like this whole thing was just a giant manipulation.
Uh-huh.
It makes me hope that that's the idea, that he's such a master Machiavellian manipulator, that he will go to such lengths just to manipulate somebody just so he can have somebody babysit his daughter.
Right. Oh, that was such a good tag.
That's what it felt like, right? He was tired of his daughter. He felt like he should have killed her when he had the chance. He didn't. Can't do it now. So he's going to concoct this whole episode just so he can drop her off on Deep Space Nine and have it be Kira's idea. Somebody else's idea.
Oh, so good. So that aside, I completely agree with you. Everything he did, everything he said, like I actually expected the Klingon ship to be planted there by him. And then when they took it, I expected that to be his plan all along. And he just managed to convince Kira to do it for him.
Yeah, it's what it felt like the whole time.
Yeah.
It felt like he has orchestrated everything.
Yeah. But it was funny because like every time it wasn't revealed, that's exactly, I was like, oh, so this is just another step in his master plan. And I love that all of this, his master plan, was just so Zial would be safe somewhere.
But the trick is the Inception. You ever saw the movie Inception? It's not about telling somebody to do it. They have to come up and make it their own idea.
Right.
And that's the master manipulation.
But for something so inconsequential.
I know. Well, he goes overboard. He's got to practice,
Right.
But then really something else that's super distracting.
You do want eggs for breakfast. That was your idea.
Yeah.
Okay.
I told you. See?
All of this has been...
It is super distracting, though, that Dukat's forehead, like that thing in the center, looks like a clitoris.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, that never gets better.
Super distracting.
Yeah.
It almost feels like it's a joke.
Right.
Like an Orville-level joke.
Yeah. I mean, what's interesting, too, is that, like, they didn't take advantage of that. Like, for the Ferengi, it's the ears, and for the Cardassians, it's the neck. They didn't take advantage of the fact that they do have a vulva on their forehead.
It's too on the nose, though. It should have been on the nose. It's too on the nose, not make it on the nose.
Right.
But I'm not the only... You thought that, too, right? It looks like the head of a clitoris.
Yeah, that's nothing new. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good. I'm glad I'm not alone and just seeing... I just see clitorises
right.
everywhere. Everywhere I go.
It gets engorged when they get mad.
It's like when John Malkovich goes into his own mind in Being John Malkovich.
And you just see clits everywhere.
Just everywhere, yeah.
Which, by the way, just as a scientific reference, a plural would be clitoris.
Clitoris?
Yeah, because IS is singular, so ES would be plural.
Oh, I wrote it US.
No. Yeah.
USA.
Clitter, US.
Glitter. It's glitter for your vagina.
Yeah, it's glitterous. Glitter.
Glitter. What do you do exactly with glitter?
You just said.
What do you do with it, though?
It's like vajazzling. That would be my guess. There's like a kind of a body glue that you put on, and then just throw some glitter on there, and just it's for strippers and extra fancy nights.
Is this staying in? We've said no bad words.
Right, I know. It's just the human body.
Yeah. And how we dress it. Okay, so another thing, this happens all the time on this show. And it happens in other shows as well. But in DS9 with Kira, it just always bugs me that this 90-pound person manages to best 2 or 3 250-pound Klingon warriors. Right? And I understand that she's scrappy.
Mm-hmm.
I understand that she's well-trained and has been through a lot. But there is a physics problem right here. Right? Just because you're scrappy and have a strong will, that does not mean that you cannot be just thrown across the room by someone who is 3 times stronger than you are. Right?
Yeah, they really don't change her style to match her weight and size. Like, everybody fights the same way, and that should not be the case. She should be far more active, like constantly moving around and unable to be a target, essentially.
You're right. It's always the punch to the face, the elbow to the chest, and magically the 300-pound Klingon who's trained all of his life to kill people for fun is down for the count. Right?
Yeah. Well, it's a punch to the face, an elbow to the chest, and then you turn around and you grab their arm and you fling them over you. And that's it. They're incapacitated. Yep.
They're done.
Yep.
Yeah. They have this giant exoskeleton on their head. And
You know, maybe their nuts are in like their lower back. And so that's why you do that move, because they're essentially crushing their nuts and it just completely incapacitates them.
It's possible. I like where you're going with this.
I'm just trying to think of more like adult stuff that we can edit out. So the episode is like 25 minutes and you're like, there is an adult episode that you can listen to by going to Patreon.
You can pay for that one.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. It bugs me because it lacks creativity. It's like, oh, she's a real super tough woman, so she can just beat whoever she comes across.
Right.
And you're right. She should be doing the kind of cliched thing now that not the Scarlet Witch, who's Scarlett Johansson?
Yeah.
Black Widow. Where they do this weird flippy thing where they get up onto their shoulders and then they bring them down with their feet and everything.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, she needs to be low and quick, and she needs to keep them off their balance. And she doesn't. She just plants her heel and uses that to like shove herself into the person.
Yeah. I don't know. It takes me out of it. That's all.
Yeah. No, I don't disagree, and I completely see why.
So when they finally they beam over, she bests all the security officers on the Klingon ship, and they take over the ship. And then they travel back to the 1980s Earth to rescue a whale.
Nice.
What they should have done in this scenario is taken the warbird, kidnapped the whale that they brought from the past, and then brought it back to the past.
Right. There you go. Just close that time loop. But speaking of just the machinations and the extreme planning that Gul Dukat did, I thought that he was going to destroy the freighter with his crew over there and do something. But then when they said like they brought them over, when he destroyed the freighter, I was like, oh, this was his plan all along. And then he turned, and he said something where I was like, oh nope, that wasn't his plan all along. It was just we now have a bigger ship.
Yeah, I guess it's cool to have to switch ships like that, because he did have kind of a junker.
Oh my god, it's one of my favorite things that people do. Like Sir Francis Drake. First off, Sir Francis Drake is one of my favorite historical explorers of all time. But then there's another, the phrase "we have not yet begun to fight" actually comes from that. I wish I could remember who the captain was, but it's during the Revolutionary War, and his ship was destroyed. Like it was barely afloat. And so he tied his ship to the other ship, so they weren't going to sink and the other ship couldn't do any more damage. They climbed over there, defeat the British soldiers, untied their ship, and took over the British ship.
I love it.
Yeah, it was just such badass last-minute planning, and I love that it worked out, and like we get to tell that story.
Although, did it actually happen that way? We don't know.
Right. Yeah. What really happened was the masts got tangled up, and he Jack Sparrowed his way through everything, and it just happened to work out.
I do like the idea that there's a little bracelet that says, "What would Jack Sparrow do?" WWJ. Oh no, it's JSD.
Yeah, I mean, it could be "What would Jack do?" People are like, "What does that mean?" He's like, "It'll make sense in a quarter of a millennia."
Yeah. Playing the long game.
Right? Just like Gul Dukat. We're going to tie that back around.
Right. I really liked the idea that he was in this junker ship, kind of along the lines of like a Firefly,
right,
that he's able to go and be this rebel in this junker. And as his time as a rebel goes forward, he's manipulated the ship in all these different clever ways that, although it looks like a junker, it's actually this really cool ship.
Right. Right. But they didn't do that.
I would love to see... No, they didn't do that. Wouldn't you love to see that show?
Yeah.
Of Gul Dukat and his junker crappy ship conquering the universe?
And it doesn't even need to be a show. Like, I would love for him to have this freighter, and he's like... He says something along the lines of, to Kira, I'm going to take your advice and keep upgrading the weapons and this ship as we go. And every time he comes back around, I mean, he was, whatever, this military envoy for an episode. We learned that he was demoted in this episode, and by the end of the episode, he's been re-promoted. And he's such a side character, a background character for this season, and through much of the show, kind of like Kai Wynn, where they are influential and important, but they're not on every episode, where he could easily be coming back in that freighter and discussing what he's already done to the ship, and just have it be more and more badass.
Yeah, and every time you see him, he's like tattered. His clothing is tattered.
Right.
You see his tail.
Right.
Cardassians should have tails. I feel like if they were a new race in today's Picard, Star Trek, whatever, that he would have a tail, right?
He might.
They would do like a CG or something like that.
It might just be curled up on his back.
That's true. Because he's a lizard. Or he came from lizards, right?
Something like that, yeah.
Or you said scorpions at a certain point.
Yeah.
Which is way different than some lizards.
But it's not mammal-based.
No.
Yeah.
It looks cool. It's actually kind of, you kind of believe, just based on how they do the makeup, you believe it's like, oh, this is different.
Right.
His face looks like a human's. But other than that, like the whole idea of, it actually looks more like a snake, like a cobra snake or something. I don't know.
Uh-huh.
I guess it's supposed to be kind of nebulous.
Right.
Anyway, so another thing happens that bugs me is Kira is teaching, what's Dukat's, not wife, not girlfriend, daughter.
I believe it's Zial.
Yeah. She's teaching Zial how to use a knife or a blaster or something like that.
Uh-huh.
And she says the best way to survive a knife fight is to not get in one.
Right.
That's like the worst advice ever. It's like saying the best way to survive a car accident is to not drive. It's like, well, that's not really an option at this point. So what's your advice in terms of actual practical advice on not getting it? Like drive slower, use your blinker, use your mirrors, all that stuff. Not just don't do the thing that is dangerous.
Right. Yeah.
I hate that stuff. It's such lazy writing. You could have had an interesting moment where she imparts all of this lifelong knowledge to her. I'm like, this is how you get through something, which is kind of the theme of this episode. Yeah. Is how badass of Kira is at being a rebel. And she's like, just the knife thing, just don't do it. That's how you survive a knife fight.
Well, I took it as more of, how she now regrets it. And that kind of culminated at the end. But it would have been nice for Zial to be more insistent, and for that to be Kira's recognition that Zial doesn't belong on here.
Okay. I'll buy it. Okay. I mean, that scene was obviously for that, because she was sort of this innocent person who was now going into a life of piracy, I guess.
Yeah.
Right?
But Zial, she just didn't seem very she didn't seem like that was what she wanted. And so I guess it just should have gone either way. Like, it should have been that she was scared about what happened and how she just wasn't ready and she could have died, and she, like, this is not the life that she wants. She loves her dad, but she's so scared of what could happen, and so then Kira goes to him and says, like, this is what I would have been if I hadn't had my training. She doesn't belong here. Or her saying, I need to learn, I need to fight, and being very hard about it, and Kira going and saying, this is not the life for her, this is not the girl she is, and she's trying to be this for you, and that's not fair to her.
Yeah, I'm fine with that whole scenario with the daughter. I just felt like it came out of nowhere.
Right.
The thing with the daughter came out of nowhere.
Yeah. And I'm just saying, like, they should have committed harder one way or the other, and not have her be like, I knew that I couldn't fight there, and so I just need to learn how to fight.
Right. And even though she doesn't want to.
Yeah. She either needed to be scared of fighting and, scared of living that life, or she needed to realize that she couldn't fight and want to be much harder.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Cool. Good.
I will say, so the most fun I had in this episode was when Kira was giving, what's her name?
Zial?
Yeah, Zial, a primer on field weapons.
Yes.
That was fun. I wanted more of that stuff, because we kind of got a little inside look of, like, look, maybe Starfleet, the Federation, is a little too over-engineered, a little too dependent on technology, that if we're going to make war weapons, we need to think about it more practically. I liked it.
Yeah. No, I liked that, there was an explanation to show the pros and cons to both.
Right.
Like she
clearly preferred the Cardassian weapon.
Right.
She's only kind of critical of the Federation weapon.
Yeah. I mean, but she kind of says, like, there's a lot more options here, but because she said, like, the recharge is faster. There was something else too about it, but
like gyroscopic balancing and stuff. I was like, oh, cool.
Yeah.
How does that work?
Right. Yeah. But then but she's like, there's being more technical. There are more things that can go wrong on the battlefield. So you want this one. I think she also said it's heavier. So like it's a better weapon all around in that respect. Like you can use it as a blunt object.
Yeah, it's cool.
And it's interesting. Like you called it a soap opera at the beginning of the episode and I don't disagree, but I felt like it was more character reflection, which you don't get in soap operas. Soap operas are all about the unspoken tension between two people.
Right.
Just thinking of, not soap opera, but Jack and Linus in the water base underground. Like Linus is not telling him anything, and there's just this unnecessary tension to be tense. But here, like everybody, all the cards are on the table, and they know why they don't like each other, and so like the tension is there. But it's just it was great character moments, and so I enjoyed the episode. I thought it was a really good episode. I don't think it's proper Star Trek. I don't think that there was sci-fi to the plot, but there was definitely the ethical and moral dilemma, and I like the characters.
Yeah, I didn't like it only because I don't like this type of Star Trek. I don't like the political stuff.
Right.
And granted, it wasn't a lot of political stuff in the sense of an ongoing thing between the Federation and the Cardassians, and there's all that stuff. It was more very interpersonal between Dukat and Kira. But I felt like once they had these kind of fun moments, these kind of fun interludes of procedural stuff, which I like, and it doesn't grab me, especially because I don't really know what's going on. I kind of know what's going on the more we watch, but all of the stuff where they're just having endless conversations to me about things I kind of don't know.
But I feel like the conflict in this episode, you didn't have to know it. It's the conflict that's happening, and they tried to get to the station, and when they get there, it's just a pile of debris, and there's a Klingon ship just nearby, and the Klingon ship totally ignores them because that's how pitiful they are. It wouldn't be honorable to destroy them,
right? Which I liked.
Yeah. A
little bit of continuity of the Klingon character there.
Right.
Yeah, I felt as though all of the stuff they were doing was the B plot, and the A plot was the tension between Dukat and Kira.
Sure. I wouldn't disagree with that.
If it had been reversed, I may have enjoyed it more. But I don't like that. That seems to be the style of this show, is all of the interpersonal conflict rises to the top.
Right, that's the
main
main
all the
focus.
other stuff. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, that's just a difference in opinion. I'm not saying that it's bad. It's just not what I want to see.
Right. No, and so there's another original series episode which I feel is very similar to this one, and it's where Kirk is chasing down, I believe, a Romulan. And I was wondering, since you didn't like this one, I was wondering whether or not you would like that one. But the plot is more just about hunting down the Romulan. And kind of it's kind of a cat and mouse episode, and so with that being the focus, I feel like you will like it more. I didn't think about the fact that this episode has that character growth being the A plot, and that other episode, the A plot is the cat and mouse. So I think you will like it.
And also, there's no character arc for Kira.
Right.
I don't think anything happens for Kira. I think it happens for Dukat, but there's no growth. But he's just pushed to a solution or a decision that he ultimately doesn't want to do,
right?
But feels he has to.
Yeah.
So I guess that's the character moment or the character revelation of the episode. But
that was something too that I thought was interesting. Like one of the things that they always wanted to portray was that Cardassians were a strict military culture, but they were also a very hard family. They had a very strong focus on family, and that was shown in Chain of Command with Picard talking with that gull, whoever it was, Jeremy Davis, I think his name is. But in this episode, he was talking about how his wife left him and took the kids, and then he says, "I have no regrets. Like, thank you for letting me keep Zial." And so it was just a very strange response.
You can keep Zial, but don't try and kill her again. No more trying to kill Zial.
Right, exactly. And, he gave up all of that, and now he has Zial, and he's like, okay, you can watch her.
Bad call!
It was just a very strange for somebody. I mean, he believes that he's the only Cardassian left, and I get that that's his focus, and I get that he wants her to be safe. But it just, as somebody who is part of a culture that believes in family, it seems weird that they didn't figure out something else, especially with him losing all other family members.
See, this just makes me feel like this further supports the idea and reinforces the idea that this is all giant manipulation on Dukat's part.
Just to get see all the
just to get. I mean, no, he's thinking so many moves ahead that even the whole having the daughter off the ship so we can go off and gallivant as a pirate. It's all just prelude to some giant grand plan, right? It's got to be.
You don't think that the grand plan is to go off and gallivant knowing that Ziyal is safe?
No.
Okay.
That's just phase one.
Okay.
Like, I think he's 20 years in the future.
Nice. All right.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm with you. I don't think it was a proper Star Trek episode. I don't think that's really contentious. There wasn't really a moment that was like, oh, this is the science fiction part of the episode. There were little tidbits here and there, but they were marginal.
Yeah, I mean, and they weren't anything that couldn't be replaced easily in the episode. Like, the enemy comes out of hiding and then realizes that this group of ragtag people is just so insignificant.
Well, even if there wasn't a real life analog or a non-science fiction analog, it still was not at the forefront of the meat of the episode. It was just kind of at the background. It was background noise. It was a setting, basically.
Right.
For them to do the stuff that they felt was more important.
Yeah.
But what we have to do is we have to find a Netflix blurb writer and have them on the show as a guest.
We need to find the Deep Space Nine blurb writer.
We have to find it. How do we do this?
Well, we've got 12 and a half years.
Or maybe when we finally watch our last Deep Space Nine episode,
right?
We'll have that person who wrote it read it.
Yeah, we will cheat a little bit with our episode generator, and when we are down to our very last Deep Space Nine episode, we will hold off on it until we find that person.
Settled. All right, so we should I do that too much. Should we see what we're watching next?
Yeah.
I'm always so tired of talking by the time I have to say that. That's
right.
Why.
All right, are we going to do the thing?
Star Trek Voyager, Season 1, Episode 2, Parallax. Voyager has set a course for home. Repairs are underway. And it's time to pick personnel to fill vital crew positions.
Ooh, this sounds like a fascinating episode.
It could be fun. There's going to be a lot of Maquis stuff when they were still kind of full bore on the Maquis crap.
Right.
But it could be fun. This is, everybody's got lots of energy. It's the first episode after the pilot. It is interesting that Netflix puts both the Caretaker 1 and 2 in one episode.
Right.
Because it was a two-parter, I think.
Yeah, it was.
Like a full two-parter.
Yeah. Yes, it was.
Like there were 2 episodes that were 45 minutes long, back to back. Were they back to back?
Right. There was a part 1.
What came next?
All right, well, let's go watch it.
I've been Paul.
I've been Jonathan.
And this has been The Measure of an Episode.